everybody. Welcome back to Drunk Uncle Radio Podcast. Of course, you can see us on YouTube. Now you can also hear us in all the podcast places that you listen to your podcasts. If you like the shit we're doing today, please help us feed the algorithm and give us a like, comment, and a share. And I would like to welcome the Drunk Uncles and our very first guest, our first drunk aunt, Hannah. Hannah, what's happening?
What up, Bubba? It's my babies. Y'all are so darling. I'm tickled to death to be here.
She is going to be our in on the title of this episode, which is "So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star." So, John, Jimmy, Adam, and Hannah, tell everybody
and the other disciples.
Yeah, tell everyone what they should do if they want to be a rock and roll star. John.
Maybe consider being a paramedic. Lawyer is a little less entertaining overall, but the money's pretty good if you're looking for that sort of smooth middle class lifestyle that's consistent and dependable. What I would definitely recommend doing is not trying to be a rock star because, well, your big break's just never going to come, honey.
That's true.
Burger King manager. Like Little Caesar sign dancer.
Mary Rich.
There it is. There it is. Yes, Jimmy, what would you say to a young man or woman who has stars in their eyes and wants to go to a musical center like you all live in Nashville or LA or New York? What would you tell that person?
I would tell them that maybe if they don't come with a lot of independent wealth, they ought to have a wealth of independence. Yes. Make sure you have a good stiff stick up the ass and so you're ready to go. You're straighten up. You try to fly right as best you can. Say yes to everything. My big thing is always like say yes until you have to say no.
That's right.
Because you never know, you might think something's little, but the little thing always leads to the big thing later on. So nothing's too little, nothing's too shitty at first. Just do them. And then eventually the shitty stuff will weed themselves out and you only have to do it every now and again. And who cares? Right. Shitty's still fun too.
Adam, what would you tell that person?
Me back in the day,
oh,
Jimmy.
No. That's big shit.
Uncle Steve, may I add to that, please?
Yes, ma'am.
I want some of the best advice I got in music business school. For those of you who are listening who will listen, they said there's three main rules. They were like, number one, be a good hang. Number two, bring it. As far as talent is concerned, bring it. And number three, be a good hang. And that's pretty much the rule to live by.
That's something we're going to talk a lot about is the things that happen on the periphery of the music, a bit of the actual making of the music. Adam, you have more of a unique viewpoint from this because you were the Lewis and Clark of our friends who went to Nashville. You went first and you were playing and you got into a band called the Spoon Benders and you were touring a lot. And then because you have all these talents, that spun out into your, video. What would you videography? Is that what you call yourself? A videographer?
Hello?
Yeah. But I never touched a camera until long after the Spoon Benders were over with.
No shit. So you didn't know how to do all this stuff?
I didn't know how to do shit.
And now you're editing videos for Rush?
Yeah. But I went to, I did, whenever I switched majors in college, I went from music to radio. So editing, I'd done editing. I'd literally cut tape and edited that way and done your shittier digital editing, whatever. But as a musician coming up in high school and early college, you're always trying to record your shit at home too. It was really bad.
That's amazing.
Well, yeah. My advice would be there's always Kinkos. But no, I wouldn't actually turn anybody away. I would say like one mistake I had is I didn't move here with a really well-stocked savings account. That's one thing you should probably think about in this day and age.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so expensive to live down
That
there.
or you better give good oral sex. I don't know. I mean, you better earn it somehow.
Well, then I'm good. I'm moving to Nashville tomorrow. So that's go ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that plus I think all of us, whenever you first get here and you actually start getting small gigs and you're able to play live, it's not a global fucking pandemic.
Right.
You know, you get so wrapped up in it, it's awesome, but you also kind of forget that you need to take care of yourself too.
Oh boy, yeah. We've all had to have seen that. That's another one we got to get into is the pitfalls of this fucking thing. Because other than pro wrestling, we have the highest mortality rate of, except for like coal miners and wrestlers, we have the highest mortality rate. In the
Alaskan crabbers.
Yeah.
Dentists are pretty high up there too, but yes.
So John, you had just started, we're all sidemen except for Hannah, who is an artist, the person out front, who we all stare at her ass while they're doing that.
Go ahead, Bubba.
And John, you started out, and we have been all, sidemen. You and Jimmy specifically have started to step out front and, do records. And John has a new single out too. Hannah, I know you do. We're going to put your what's it called?
Oh, shots. Girls call the shots. Yeah.
Your promo in there. But John, talk about the difference between what it's like, and we're getting a little ahead, but we'll jump around. The difference between just like, hey man, you're the bass player, keyboard player, whatever the 17 gigs that you can play, and now you're the motherfucker who has to get these assholes together and get rehearsed. Which one do you like better? What has being a sideman gotten you ready for being the guy out front that we're now staring at your ass?
Oh, being the sideman gets you prepared to stand on the stage. You have your legs under you. You know how your gear works for the most part, unless you change instruments 5 times in a career or a show. And so it gives you that sea legs, if you want to call it that. I think the biggest change for me, because as a sideman, I came up through high school and college. I was kind of always running the rehearsals, or close to that. And so wrangling a band and keeping people in line, that's not that hard in my opinion. But when you add on the pressure of, especially if you're doing music that you personally composed or you personally have an emotional and an artistic stake in, that's when things start to get dicey for you. The biggest thing for me was learning how to keep that sort of artistic pressure at bay. At the same time, stepping out from behind the shadows, all of a sudden you're in the front, the spotlight's on your face, there's a microphone in front of you, and you have to talk to these people. You have to entertain these people suddenly. And I consider myself a pretty outgoing, pretty boisterous personality. Boy, when you look out into a sea of black and all of a sudden the lights are on and it's all on you, it's real easy to get choked up and start kind of,
turn into Garth Algar.
So you brought up something, and I know that it seems like we all four, John, if this is bad, you can cut it out later. John at one point was a professional student and has a music degree. And me, I know that everybody here studied music. And Hannah, you mentioned that you have a music business degree, or you studied
Yes,
music
I was a double major. So I studied the history of rock and roll at the University of Georgia.
Yeah.
That's a fucking degree you can get.
I mean, well, pretty much if you smoke. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
stuff with Dr. shooting out ass. And there's that. No. I was a double major. Yeah, PR journalism, and because it involved the least amount of math or science.
Nice.
So played that one, and yes.
And then you did the music business degree. And my question to you is, this actually is kind of a pointed episode to one of my students. Shout out Charlie, shut up, go practice. He is thinking about going to Belmont and doing the thing. And the first thing I did was I took him outside and let him see my 2003 Element. And I was like, this is going to be driving late model cars if you go do this shit. I want him to really know that. But Hannah, do you think, obviously you don't have to go to college to be successful.
No.
But do you think that going to college can give you a leg up? Is it worth it if you're doing what you're doing? And you are the one in here who is the most, that's been an artist, a name out front the longest and the most established. What do you think about that?
You're kind. I appreciate that. Well, I lost the Belmont battle with my daddy. I wanted to go. I had the application and the recommendation letters and everything filled out, and a 4.0 to go along with it. And fuck that. I want to drink and party. So, but all that to say, he was like, no, you're going to stay in state and be a Georgia Bulldog. But I feel like I got, and I got probably half of the training that a Belmont student would get. But, here I am with a major record deal, and the career that I've always wanted, or at least I'm on the way there. And I feel like it's just mainly because of persistence and, it's a calling that I've had. And I just know that I have, that it's what I was born to do, if you will. So, and it's about building relationships. And so, I think college didn't really help me in the music business sense as much as it helped me socially, which helps my songwriting.
Now, were you gigging in like college and like high school?
Hell no, I was scared to death. I played a few AGR parties, and I would play at the bar's not even there anymore. JR's, maybe. I'd play JR's Bait Check. Eric Church was a new artist out, and he had a new record out, and I just thought that was the coolest stuff. And I refused to cover anybody except maybe him and some Conway Twitty and Joe Diffie and Little Allman Brothers, But yeah, I think there's something to be said about but I think you can be the smartest person in the world, but I still think and I still believe that talent reigns true. And with all the platforms that we have out there now, TikTok and things like that, and education is important. But if you've got if you have the skill and the personality, college isn't necessarily a must. Although for your social life, it could be.
Jimmy, you have actually you and John have the same degree, don't you? Performance and jazz.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So yeah, did you forget about that?
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think, Jimmy? I know that a lot of the gigs that you've done down there probably didn't fit into the thing that you were studying in college. But was there any times where you were like, "Wow, I'm really glad I went to music school for this situation"?
Not really, honestly. I'd echo pretty much everything Hannah said. It was great for me socially, but I learned more playing with like you guys and playing with the old folks and all that, playing with the drummers in the bars and just getting hammered and learning the whole hang thing and learning how to play with people. Because you can learn all the theory in the world, but it doesn't teach you how to apply it. It doesn't, and you could study Jamie Aebersold or do all that. I never bothered because I never.
You never played through a Jamie Aebersold book?
No, I would get assigned them, and I never did them.
Did you, John? Did you?
Nope.
God damn it! I guess I'm the one. It's me.
As a front man, Jimmy, and all my uncles, I would much rather hire someone with natural talent than with school talent any day. You can hear a difference. You can hear a difference in the guitar tone. It's night and day. So, damn right. It's grease. It's being behind the pocket. It's just having that natural God-given gift. And, you can want to be a rock star all you want to be, but if you don't have it, then I would suggest, pursuing, something that involves numbers or science or something that I would totally fail at and that I can't do because I don't have that kind of a talent.
Well,
but you can do what I did.
Yeah, dude, I'll do what Adam did. Adam's fucking busiest motherfucker in Nashville right now.
So, I love it.
Even from like a more like from a pragmatic sense, and you look at it like, okay, you're a musician, chances are you're not going to be making that much money, at least for a while. So are you willing to, if you're not like independently wealthy, let's say, or you don't have scholarships, out the ass, are you willing in this day and age with student loan debt being as huge a burden as it is, are you willing to saddle yourself with that much student loan debt to do it? Or should you just get your ass out there and do it? And I
Hey,
think
I
if
scrub
you
toilets, Jimmy. I mean, I've got
Exactly.
a quote unquote trust fund, but I mean, I can't dip into it. You know what I mean? I scrub toilets to buy this Gibson sitting right here in front of me because I
Exactly
sold
right.
all my guitars to pay my band members because that was more important to me. And I ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches till I was sick of them. Anyway,
That's
but
it.
I mean, I just, I don't think it's a matter of, I just think it's, it's just a matter of having the work ethic and persistence.
well, sure.
A show of hands, who here still has student loans?
Oh, Jesus. No,
Yeah.
actually, I don't. I paid mine off. I will say
Did
that.
you pay your
But your
shit? Damn.
wife-
I paid my shit off, but my wife does.
Get that Jake Owen money if you can.
My wife's got enough for both of us. So we're
So here's what I was. Yeah, that's good. So here would be my biggest one, and I say this all the time because over the years I've had a couple students at Berkeley, a couple students at Belmont, and I have some students that are actually doing it. I have one that I think maybe some of you all may have crossed paths with, Sam Wiseman, who's down there. I had another kid who toured with a Christian punk band, Our Heart's Hero, and like that's a good racket, man. He signed up with that band and got like endorsements, and it just came with everything. Like he got to that band, he was Truth drum endorser immediately. Can't remember what it's symbol. Anyway, my biggest thing that I tell my students when I get this question, or that I tell them, is I went to music school and I benefited because I came into music school lacking a lot of skills. Now, a lot of the cats that are in this room right now are infinitely more naturally gifted than I am. Shut up. And that helped me in the sense that I had to compete to get that marimba part in the percussion ensemble. I had to compete to get out from behind the first chair drummer in the jazz band. And that stuff really benefited me. But I've said this and I'll say this till the day I die. I learned more about the art of musicianship. Like I was going to music school, but excuse me, the whole time I was playing in my Uncle Mike's cover band. We were playing country music and the dead animal circuit, eagles, moose, elks. There you go.
Yeah.
VFW. The VFW, or as my Uncle Mike used to call VFWs, the very few women. You ain't gonna meet no women at the VFW. So I
get some hot bologna sandwiches.
You can get a hot bologna sandwich, and man, the pours are so
Hell.
generous at a VFW.
For
You
no
got a
money.
shot of Jägermeister, you get like a
With
triple
Earl
shot.
and Edna, I love it. My Lord, get a Miracle Whip on a bologna sandwich. I'd be willing to bet.
Oh, dude, for sure. But I learned more playing in the bars and going like Thursday through Sunday. So I'd go Monday, Friday, college. I was in marching band. I was in jazz band. I was in handbell choir because I was on scholarship. So they make you do everything to get their money out of you. But then, Thursday through Sunday, I was playing Watermelon Crawl 3 times a night because this was during the line dance craze. And I can say that my ability got better because I did go and get to interact with musicians who were better than me and had to get that hunger of like, I can't not practice right now because this motherfucker is, and I want to get what he's got. And this is going to go to Nashville a lot here in a minute. And that was great. And that got my mechanics and my technicalities down. But I learned how to be a musician who has recorded a bunch and played live and done all the things because my first playing experience was 4 hours a night. Me and Jimmy, we were talking about this in the thread a couple of weeks ago. Like that right there is that's like the minor leagues for the big leagues. Like if you want to get to where Jimmy is now, and Jimmy will always be too humble, where, he's played all of the major fucking stages in North America, maybe not in Mexico. But how much did those gigs that me, you, and John would play in that basement pizza joint benefited you when you're on stage and you're being handed a bass guitar by your bass tech?
Man, it's you can never put into words the kind of feeling it is when you've been playing 4 to 6 hour gigs for years and then you play a 60-minute set. and you're like, man, Jesus God, thank God. It's such a relief. And you appreciate it so much because it just flies by, and then you start getting used to 60-minute sets, and then all of a sudden you jump out, you got to do like a 3 hour again, and then your chops are all gone. And like, well, shit, now I'm all backwards.
Dude, that happened to me. Like I went from, playing in the last band I was in, and we were, regionally touring and playing a 90-minute set every night. And then I had like a spot in my schedule, and there was a country band that was doing the 4-hour night. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah, man, I'll go do this, man. That fourth set. And I was like, how the fuck did we do this? Oh my God. Oh shit. To numb the pain. Oh my goodness.
A lot of boobs. Oh, boobs. Excuse me.
Yes. So Adam, I know that did you gig a whole bunch before you went to Nashville, or when you got to Nashville, is that when you started to gig heavier?
I mean, when I lived back in Ashland, Huntington, I would gig every once in a while. I did a lot more when I was in high school, honestly. When I got into college, I didn't really play much out. But around 2007 or so, I started I'm hanging out with one of the best bass players I know.
John or Jimmy?
Both, but I met John and everybody else through Jimmy. And it was like right when he started gigging out a bunch with you guys, I was just like, I had this bit of FOMO about it. I was just like, man, I haven't done that in so long. I'm okay. I feel like I'm okay. But it was around that same time that I started looking at gigs in Nashville, and I got this audition with a band called the Spoon Vendors, and went and did it, and I didn't get in because of my playing. It was because of the hang.
We're going to talk about that hang.
Yeah.
But first, because I want to kind of introduce, Hannah and specifically Jimmy to the world. They say that the radio won't play our songs, but fuck them, we will. We're going to watch, and this is a little interlude, if you will. This is Jimmy Likens and Miss Hannah Dasher. Jimmy, go ahead, tell us about this song, Daddy.
Well, I'd call it Hannah Dasher, and then Jim sits over there on a chair and sings with us.
I would too.
Jim's just there. Mm-hmm. No, this was a great song that I've always loved. It's Keith Whitley and Laura Morgan, and they didn't do all that many songs together, even though they were married. But still, it's one of my favorite songs. And there's a lot of people doing different country covers, but I noticed not as many people would sometimes do the 80s stuff and the mid and late 80s stuff, and sometimes it kind of gets lost in the wash. And I was sitting there one day, and I was just kind of listening to it as I want to do every now and again. And I'll go through a Keith phase or Lori phase or whatever phase, and
I live it.
Oh yeah, exactly. And then I was sitting there listening to it, and I look at you. I was just like, "Fuck it, may as well. Why don't we make one of them fucking 80s videos?" It's just go. First person I thought of immediately was Hannah. It's Jesus Christ, who can sing the fuck out of it? It's going to be Hannah.
Oh, heavens.
I'll ask her. And immediately she was all in. So it's well, shit. Now I got to do it. So yeah, we did it. Hannah was wonderful and kind enough to do it and killed it and. And we did it as quarantined, as one could
quarantined, yes.
And what Jimmy meant to say earlier about, how lots of people do country
Chelsea
covers.
It too.
Yeah.
And my wife did. My wife, yes.
I was on Chelsea and Jimmy's first date. Their first date was watching me and Jimmy's band, and it was her and the bartender. That was their first date.
That was at Crickets too.
Yeah, dude, you knew she had to love Jimmy because it wasn't like we looked like anything, because it literally was Chelsea and the bartender. That was their first date.
It wasn't even Crickets. It was Crickets 2.
It was Crickets TOO2.
That's right, man.
So, Jimmy, what you were saying before when you're saying a lot of people, do country covers, what you meant to say is a lot of people don't do fucking good ones. So you can go ahead and say that. So this is Miss Hannah Dasher and Mr. Jimmy Likens, produced by Chelsea Haynes Likens. Also, I knew that was John playing drums because of your perfect. Yes, John playing drums, of course. John's better drummer than I am. But I knew it was John because of your perfect French grip on your right hand. I was like, oh yeah, because I didn't even go to the description when I saw that shit. It's music nerd, mama. I was like, oh, that's I know that technique. That's Jim or John. I mean, so we are now going to listen to. We're going to listen to
like that.
John Cavendish playing keyboards and drums, and Jimmy Lycan singing and playing, and Hannah Dasher singing, and they're going to be doing "Till a Tear Becomes a Rose."
Hot damn.
Darling, I can't see the clouds around you, and in your heart I know the sorrow grows. But if you weep, I'll be right there to hold you till each tear you cry becomes a rose.
Dearest love, I know your heart is shattered, and all my words can offer no relief, but my love can heal the pain you've suffered, and I'll be here if you should turn to me.
Darling, I can see the clouds around you, and in your heart I know a sorrow grows. But if you weep, I'll be right there to hold you till each tear you cry becomes a rose. In deepest nights, when memories stand together, lay with me and put your fears to sleep, 'cause there's no pain no dream can put asunder. All the love that binds you to me. Darling, I can see the clouds around you, and in your heart I know a sorrow grows. But if you weep, I'll be right there to hold you till each tear you cry becomes a rose. Till each tear you cry becomes a rose.
Okay, so I still say, and I'll stand up on your fucking table with my boots on and say that that's the best country record that's come out of Nashville. And it's not just because Jimmy's one of my oldest, bestest friends. When I heard it, I fucking was like, you just did it. You just changed the game again. Because now everybody, because I think the next move, like everybody's trying to be outlaws now, and everybody's got brand new cowboy boots down there and think they know who Jerry Jeff Walker is. But then like the next move is that power pop country from the 80s, and Zach Brown touched on it a little bit with that You Make Loving Me Easy, which is kind of Alabama-ish. I was like, damn, Jimmy and Hannah just moved the country scene along a little bit. And that's I just want to fangirl and simp for that, because I like you, that video has like 400 or 500 views. I'm probably 25. because I think it's fucking awesome.
Well, I agree so much that
We were just
country
having fun.
music, country music needs that like 80s resurgence with people like Keith.
Amen.
Well, it seems like it's got to
Mainly
have
just
to.
Keith.
Yeah, shit. But man, it seems like it has to because pop is doing it. Like bands like Coin, they sound like Tears for Fears. It seems like that would be the next thing, right?
Well,
Jimmy?
man, well, that's kind of what's so interesting about that period is like that was at that time, everybody looked at all of them like a resurgence of old country, like, Alan Jackson and Randy Travis and
Dwight Yoakam.
and Dwight Yoakam and Lori and
Yes.
Keith and all them. They were all this like big resurgence of kind of like good old fashioned country music. And so they were, it was almost like they were a pariah for a while, and then they were it. They were everything.
And Jimmy talk about, and we're a little bit off the subject, but I don't give a shit because I like going organically like this. Jimmy, talk about like how much trad bluegrass cats ushered that in.
Well, I mean, quite a bit. I mean, if you look at Keith, like just take him as an example, right? Keith came up. He wasn't like when he was a little kid, he wasn't necessarily a bluegrass fan, and his brother was, if I remember right. But then like he got into it and learned every Stanley Brothers song. It was, I could go through the whole Keith thing with him and Ricky Skaggs, growing up together.
That's right.
And then they got discovered by Ralph on a Ralph gig where they were late for. So that Keith and Ralph got up Keith and Ricky got up and sang Stanley Brothers songs until Ralph got there. And Ralph thought they were playing the jukebox, just playing Stanley Brothers songs. They saw these two kids, So Stan, like 14, 15 years old. So Ralph Stanley takes him on, does a couple records with him. Then they play in his band for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Ricky leaves. Keith stays for years, left once, comes back. But, he played with a lot of people, and he was in that circle with Lester Flatt. I mean, he played with J.D. Crowe and New South
That's right.
for a long time.
Lord, if y'all get time, check out his version of Keith Whitley's version of Rose-Colored Glasses.
Oh,
What?
J.D. Crowe and New South. Oh, it will blow your mind. It's
That
an
live
18 or
version.
19-year-old Keith Whitley.
No shit. Was that
a young, untainted voice by adult beverages? I mean, it's great.
was that before the John Conley version?
That was after the John Conley version.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like live in Japan, J.D. Crowe, I think.
Yeah, it's live
Okay.
in Japan. I've got a copy. I bet Jimmy's got it on vinyl anyway. But
I do.
Well, you know what? That means that Flat Lonesome, who I think is one of the better bluegrass bands that's come out in the last couple of years,
Great vocal group.
they're great, but they're debunked right now. I think it's family band. I think there were some babies coming.
There's a lot of births in that.
A lot of
band.
births,
A lot
yeah.
of births.
A lot of births.
Yeah.
And they do a version of it. And I was like, God damn, that's a great song for bluegrass. But I guess Keith was the first one to do it. So Jimmy, let's talk about Vern. You talk about Ricky. You talk about
he said
Joe
Vern.
Diffie.
Joe Diffie. I don't know that Dwight really had played bluegrass first. I don't think Dwight did. I love Dwight Yoakam, but
I don't think. But what I think it was.
Vince
Yeah,
did.
Vince. Yeah, Vince he was like a banjo player initially when he went out to California. He's like, I went out to be a banjo player, and sing
Marty,
wonderful.
Mark Stewart.
Yeah, goddamn, how we forget that?
Marty Stewart with Lester for since the time he was about 12 years old. But I told never mind. I told you those Marty Stewart stories about.
Oh yeah, we're
used
going to
to
do a deep dive on that shit later. Don't
come
Lord,
over
worry.
to my
we're nerding out over here. We're
Come over
trying to carry the torch forward.
I've still
but
got
my
a
point-
picture of Marty at my grandparents' house when he was like 14 years old.
Yeah, Jimmy, we're again, Hannah. When we do this deep dive, we might have to bring you back. Jimmy's mama and papa was kind of like a bed and breakfast for like the elite bluegrass cats. So like those people would just be your mama, and we're gonna save this for later. Your mama hated Marty Stewart because he was a 14-year-old that would come in and just fuck the house up because she didn't see him as like hillbilly rock. Here was this 14-year-old hoodlum kid that was just coming here messing stuff up. But that's for another episode. Save that because that is.
Well,
but I
so
think
there's good stories in it.
Oh, we're going to do that for sure. But I think what we were.
I was sorry to get to Hannah's point, and it was Hannah's point earlier where she was talking about talent, and I think that's the thing in that bluegrass world, especially in the top tier. Like talent is everything, and they appreciate it so much that the ones that shine through like that, if they can do that stuff and they can do it well, they could do just about anything.
You know, that
it's
even
over my head. It's so good. Excuse me.
That may even bring it back to Jimmy and John, who were jazzers in another career. And I was a junior varsity jazzer. Like, man, this will sound pretentious, but I do believe it's true. If you can operate that instrument in that style, I think that it makes a lot of other things easier underneath.
The Allman Brothers.
John, do you agree with me?
The birth of Southern rock and roll arguably came from jazz.
John, don't you think so?
In country.
I have very strong opinions about this. That is the number one reason that I went to jazz school, is because I had it in my head that if you can play jazz on whatever your particular instrument may be, you can manipulate that instrument in any style of American popular vernacular music. So yes, I think that's true. I also think you have to be very careful about that, because going into musical academia will knock the grease off of you faster than fucking Dawn soap.
And that's what Hannah was talking about earlier, is, you know, she is an employer as well as an artist. And, you know, she talked about, like, you would rather have a greasy bar musician than someone who can play giant step.
Yeah. Or a little homeschooled Pentecostal boy that's done nothing but, you know, play instruments. I mean, one of the best flat pickers I've ever heard in my life is a boy that started going on the road when he was 10 years old and had no schooling, no high schooling. He was schooled. I mean, none of that. He's one of the best. He got FGL started. Anyway, but yeah, enough for me. But yeah, I think talent's where it's at, and being a good hang. And that's what I'll say.
So and that's what we're going to get into next. So when you hired Jimmy, you weren't checking his degree.
Woo! Well, my dear friend, our mutual friend, Luke Nias, who plays lead for me and one of my best friends this day, Luke, that lucky son of a bitch, he came to Nashville at 19 years old. But all that to say, so he's attractive, but he, 19-year-old, you know, pretty blonde hair, stout, you know, tall guy, walks on to the Big and Rich tour, walks on. Like most of us start in Nashville, you know, sleeping in the back of white 12-passenger vans and, you know, earning our keep. But he walks onto a tour bus, basically. Anyway, whatever. But he is like, he's very talented. He just said Jimmy is the best bass player that he knows. And I said, hell yeah, bring him on. And we met the night of a gig. The night of a gig and a whiskey jam. I think somebody at the label was coming to watch, and I was like, all right, hell yeah, let's do it. And Jimmy showed up and outplayed every one of us.
So tell us about Jimmy getting poached.
Oh Lord. Well, I mean, you know, I'm brand new on the scene. I'm wet behind the ears. And so obviously it's hard for me. You know, if I'm just only playing, you know, 40 dates a year at the most, or 30 at the most, you know, and then a bigger act comes along that plays 50 dates a year. I mean, I can't imagine. Take the Jake Owen gig. I mean, even if I love Jake and I have the same stylist now, so I have some of his shirts hanging in my closet, and we have to wear some of the same pair of shoes. So you can give him hell all about that with his feminine taste.
So
I've heard some Jake stories that I can't share, but
we definitely can't do that here, Jimmy. Jimmy needs that gig.
Jake has been an encourager to me in my music, and I think, you know, Jimmy has emphasized, you know, that relationship. And I just, I mean, I love Jimmy Likens to pieces. I love him so much, y'all. I'd go to war.
Do.
One of the things I love just now for the last like 5 minutes is watch how Jimmy wanted to unzip his skin while we're all over here talking about it. So that's going to
best decision for him and his baby girls. I don't hold that against him for anything.
So now I want to bring it, and Adam, I want you to talk about it, because let's talk about it. You know, I've talked to this with students as well. You can be great. You can be the best player. You can have all the grease. Dude, remember Jocko got fired. The hang is the most important thing. And I can tell you this, the last band that I was in, and I'm not going to say those names because I do love one of them. We fired the two best players that was ever in that band John, you know one, because the hang was becoming a detriment to the gig. And that's something that I think people who, you want to be a rock and roll star, when you are seeing the Foo Fighters on stage and you're seeing Muse on stage, first of all, you're seeing 0.0021% maybe of the musicians in the world. As John said at the beginning, don't get into it if you want to be a rock and roll star, but also think about it like this: to keep that gig, you could be the greatest player. We all know great players that got fired. It's about not the 60 to 90 minutes that you're on stage sometimes, especially when in the scene that you guys are in Nashville. It's how enjoyable you can be the 22 to 23 hours before you play that gig that you're not playing. Adam, you are one of the most affable fellows and everyone loves you. And this is why you're probably one of the better hangs in Nashville. When you went down there, did you notice that right off the bat that it was, of course, you've got to be able to play? That's not even something that people ask anymore. It's the other thing. Did you recognize that immediately?
Yeah. I mean, I went through several other auditions with upstart rock groups down here when I moved here before meeting Matt Winfrey, who had this band called the Spoonbenders that he just moved up from Florida. Matt, I love you if you're watching this. But I went and auditioned with Matt, and that was the first time I played my shitty audition. I fucked up way too much for my liking. And then we went and had a beer at the Flying Saucer afterward. And Jimmy's just texted me a photo of Robert C. Byrd. But anyway, we go to the Flying Saucer, we have some beers, and it was the best hang. It was just like hanging, we're old pals. And I honestly think that's why he even told me, it was like, yeah, I mean, you were shaky on your audition. You were just cool to hang with. And
yeah, but don't sell yourself short. It wasn't like, you kept that gig because you were cool to drink with, which we all know that's true. It wasn't like, you still had to have the goods afterwards. So stop.
Right. No, he was okay with my playing, obviously, but we had a good time hanging. And when that's not something you're thinking about going into a stressful situation, it's the little guy trying to find a gig around here. You don't think about that part your first time, and then you look back on it, you're like, yeah, those other bands were kind of assholes.
See, I think that's something where where me, John, and Jimmy had played a bunch of gigs before we started getting into that next level of the business, because we played those covered gigs. You played those gigs with your best friends in high school. I think that cats like us who are, quote unquote experienced before you get into that next level. I hate that fucking cliche. Next level. I hate it. But
next tier.
I'm the opposite of that. So I had no experience.
That's what we're going to talk about that in a second. You're damn right, Hannah. But John, it's almost like because we played with our best friends and we were fucking always just happy to be there, that didn't it feel like it transfers very easily when you're playing with strangers and you're just like, oh yeah, man, you're really good and I enjoy playing music.
Yes, and I'll bring up a counter to your to the overall notion that your hang is the most important thing, because it absolutely is. I don't want to refute that by one point, but Adam, you made a good point there talking about the other bands that you'd sort of audition with were kind of douchebags. It's like any job interview anywhere in the world. Not only are they interviewing you, but you are interviewing them. You don't have as much license and as much choice when you're starting out. And so you don't have the ability to go, you know what, you guys are scumbags, you get lost, whatever. But as far as and I know we're going to come sort of circle back around to this, as far as the mental health aspect of being in the music business, because it will depress the shit out of you, future rock stars. Watch out. You have to be sure to look out for number one. You have to be able to make sure you're taking care of yourself while you are going through this learning and growing process.
too many.
It's a dating game, John. It's a dating game for sure. As a like songwriter to songwriter, artist to producer, manager to artist, label to artist, sideman to frontman, whatever. I'll shut up. But it is different. It's very much a dating game. Every relationship up
More
here
so
is.
than any other profession, career path, industry, because there is maybe dance, some other sort of collaborative, creative expression that I could see it being the same parallel. But I mean, you know, when you're in a band, when you're making music with people, you're kind of fucking, and that's what's fun.
I have said it so many times because my musical career has basically started out as a sideman, and I like being in bands. I like being in solid bands that, you know, we are this band and we're this, you know, group of fucking miscreants, you know, marauding from town to town. So I haven't really done a lot of like sidemanning in a while. And I've said this so much, and it's even more so when you're in like a, you know, you're this band. The name of this band denotes these people. It's a fucking marriage where no one's fucking. And it's that. It's a now. Well, hopefully no one. Hopefully no one's fucking. Hopefully no one's fucking, because that never ends well.
Exactly. When they start fucking, it just goes out the window, and oh my god.
Yeah, it's a good disaster. But that's that.
Except for Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks and Joe Walsh and Stevie Nicks.
So
And
Hannah, that brings.
Anybody else? Stevie Nicks?
Are you serious?
Right?
Go ahead, John.
I said, and anybody else in Stevie Nicks? We can throw
Thanks pretty much. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. A student came in today. She's like this 15-year-old girl. Man, she's going to be a really good drummer, actually. And she had a Fleetwood Mac shirt on. And I said, Fleetwood Mac shirt. And I said, now, did you own that shirt before the meme? And she was like, oh, yeah. She's like, it wasn't the cranberry guy that made me like this. So Hannah, I want to talk to you now. You know, you are a little different in your musical career because now, did you like sing in high school and stuff? Like you were singing before you decided to come to Nashville and be
I mean, I wasn't like in chorus or anything, but you know, Georgia has a really, really active, really strong 4-H program, and they have a performing arts group that is unlike, you know, kind of anything I've seen. But Hillary Lindsay, this is a famous Nashville songwriter, is a product of that. Jennifer Nettles of Sugarland, you know, is a product of that. Anyway, Kaylee Hammock, you know, who's killing it right now with Capitol Records, Universal, was also a product of that. And I'm one of those, and a few musicians here in town. But anyway, needless to say, that gave me an outlet to perform and in front of some mixed audiences and to really come out of my shell. You wouldn't know it, but I was a little shy, you know, in middle school.
I don't believe that.
They pushed me out of my good old 90s country Southern rock shell. And, you know, I mean, they encouraged me to cover more soul music, which, I mean, I've always listened to Aretha and stuff like that, but I never had the balls to cover a black woman singing. I mean, I could never hold a candle to what she could do.
But you really started like performing and becoming an artist and learning that you know, stagecraft and your trade just when you came to Nashville. That's a ballsy move.
Well, actually, Jaron Johnston is responsible. He I mean, I, you know, played guitar in college, but it was just a little acoustic guitar that I just accompanied myself with. I mean, I was never classically or, you know, trained anyways, but he gave me a 69 Telecaster with a P90 pickup in it. Anyway, and he's like, here, learn it. And it was like moving to France and you don't speak French. And, I mean, I'm nowhere near the musician that you guys are. Anyway, but I just figured I'd Barbara Mandrell that shit, you know, and I have to take a solo or two at least, you know, every show, at least one or two, just to make them think I can hold my own. But I mean, Jimmy knows the truth. So was your first gigs in Nashville? So you hadn't really like, when I'm talking about like gigs, my first band gigs were,
Wow. That's so ballsy. You have such a sack. Because like I'm scared to move down there, and I've played fucking 5,000 gigs, and I don't think I'm good enough to move. Here's the thing about Nashville. And there was about 7 years ago, a man becomes single after a long period of time, and maybe he was homeless. And my best friend said, "Man, move to fucking Nashville." And they all said like, "Oh, you'll do well down here." I don't believe that, because also the stress of that town. I feel this is how Nashville is. Jimmy, you're going to say it's not. But I feel that like if a gig is like happening and there's some competition for it, like a motherfucker will steal your cymbal collection and throw it off a bridge so you can't take the gig.
I don't know.
Then you lose the gig.
No. Well,
everybody knows how expensive that shit is.
Car, but he won't throw your cymbals away.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there you go.
I'll preface it by saying Hannah's better than all of us. Don't let her fool you. But Nashville's kind of a funny town. Maybe in some other places, but Nashville's kind of a funny town because you're a lot of times like your contacts and your relationships are your income. It is your business. Like everything is relationships. And like, you know, like bringing it around, like Hannah was saying about the hang, everything is your relationships. And in Nashville, at least, like there's not that much, at least among players, and there's not like backstabbing and betrayal and all that. It just doesn't happen because everybody knows everybody. And if you fuck somebody up, then they're going to make sure everybody else knows.
I think I sometimes forget how small of a circle it is because it feels like such a big circle. Adam?
Yeah, when you come here and if you start like loudly shit talking other players to other people, that shit gets around fast. And I've known several guys, like whenever I first started playing here, we'd play like the basement and the end and the 5 spot. And that was really about it for a while. But like these other bands that had just started or something, they would be in there and they would just talk shit on other bands that they'd opened for the night before or something like that. And then you just didn't really see those guys around much anymore.
So it's it's almost like a social Darwinism that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could line up every gig I've had in the last few years with the very, very first gig I ever played. And I would bet that in Nashville anyway, and I bet that just about every other player and even artist could probably do the same. It was for old Johnny Shortridge, John. I'd subbing for John.
Oh, shit.
It was my very, very first gig in Nashville was actually in Memphis. It was a tuxedo wedding gig. And I did that, and then I played another gig with Johnny, and it was like I think Noonan, Georgia, someplace like that.
Wow!
For a kid,
home of Alan Jackson. By God.
Exactly right. And then he couldn't make the next one, and then I met this other guy, and then that guy hooked me up. I played with this band called the Lost Trailers for a couple of years through that gig, and then through that gig, it was after that even. I had another gig with this guy that was playing pedal steel through the guy in the Lost Trailers, and then he hooked me up with the gig that led to a gig that I was in for a couple of years, and then that gig led to meeting Luke because of a drummer because of another gig, and then that wound up to meeting Hannah. It all lines up linearly, and at any point in that, you know, if you try to be an ass or something or whatever, you know, you break that line, and the line's very important.
I've had to learn the hard way, Jimmy, too. I am, as well, y'all already know, but I'm known for being brutally honest and unfiltered. And I think sometimes that may help you in your songwriting, but sometimes that can definitely hurt you as an artist, you know. So I think that at least COVID has allowed me to tone that part of me down, to pull my head out of my ass, and to realize how important relationships are. So if I could go back to me in college and tell me advice, which is how kind of I look at this podcast for myself, would be that the relationships is the most important thing. It is the most important thing at all. Consider other people more than you consider yourself.
Well, what you just said there was actually brings up a really good point. Is you should be in the this right goes right to if you trying to make this music thing a career, is you should always be in a constant state of self-evaluation, and that's not just about this. Do you know all of your scales and do you know your rudiments? But are you approaching your songcraft correctly? Is there a way that you can do it better? And it's maddening. Because it never ends. Like that never stops. There's that whole story, and Jimmy, you probably know this very famous story of was it a violinist who was asked why he at 90 some years old why he was still practicing, and he said, "Well, I think I'm finally getting somewhere."
Oh, I love it.
John, do that again. John, you know it.
Vladimir Horowitz, the pianist.
Tell the story.
Yes.
Oh, no, it's what you just said. He was asked. He passed when he was like 96 or 97 years old, and he played up until very close to the end of his life. And he was asked, "Why, Maestro? Why are you still practicing at this age?" And he said, "Because what you just said. Because you can always learn. You always need to be reevaluating."
Right.
And that's very different from a lot of jobs and vocations out there.
I think at any point in the music business or as a musician, not even as a business, we all got into this because we love it. It's not like for the money necessarily. I'm sure some people get into it for the money, but I didn't, at least. And I bet we didn't.
I blame AC/DC and Rush.
Yeah, you get into
I wake up to giving the dog a bone every morning and just pour that is my alarm tone.
Yes. You do. We do it because it's almost like a sickness. You can't help but do anything else. It's like an addiction. Sickness. And if I ever woke up in the morning and I thought like, I don't want to sing better, I don't want to write better, I don't want to play better, then I should probably quit because I got no business doing it. Somebody else
Jimmy, should
do what I'm doing.
Jimmy, you're so right, darling. And can I please add before I talk too much again? But I think what's the most important is keeping honest people around you, people that are not afraid to tell you the truth. And sometimes that truth hurts. You know what I mean? I can suck at things. I'm nowhere near the artist I plan to be, but I'm a lot better than I have been. Anyway, but that's just thanks to having people around me that are real with me and keep me in check and encourage me to practice. And
Hannah, you brought up an even a greater subject about all of this and I can say this being a drummer, because I think the drummer, and I'm obviously being drum centric, has to be the most egoless in the band. Mm-hmm. And what you just said, and I've been in the studio with John and Jimmy for fucking dozens and dozens and dozens of hours, and we have all said, brutally honest things to each other, knowing, and we could do this because we were best friends, but this is good. This also gets into when you're in a situation where you are a hired group of people, and maybe you haven't spent the night at John's house, at his dad's house, that like that idea of like when a producer or someone says, "Hey, this right here could be better than that," you have to check that ego. And if you come to a scene like where you're at, or almost any scene, and feel like you can't be told what to do, and I think this goes back to being a college musician, because we've spent our whole time in college being told by professors that we suck and we can be better, and they're smacking you in the face. That is a big thing, and that's a hard one. That goes to personality. Like John, we've all done it. John, me and John are songwriters together. We write songs. We're the Hillbilly Gershwins. And dude, we can so easily be like, John can be like, "Dude, fuck this." And I'm like, perfect. But that's a real hard thing to swallow sometimes, right, John? Like that ego, to lose that ego.
Especially when you are talking about an original artistic creation. Nothing, at least from my perspective, nothing taps into raw ego more than spilling your fucking heart out on a page with a guitar.
Well, they are not your children. Do not get attached to those things. You better be a player when it comes to that.
Dude, Hannah, that's beautiful. That's a wonderful sentiment.
I'd have a hell of a lot of abandoned kids if ever.
You can think that, and Jimmy, we've done this in records that we've done where we've played a song, and we've got into the studio with a producer who knew what the fuck was going on, and he'd just be like, "This is wrong," or not what wrong isn't, that's too harsh. It could be more appropriate. The thing that you're doing could be more appropriate than what you're doing now. And it takes a lot of swallowing that pride to say like, well, I wrote this, I did this, I've thought about this. And, who are you to say that I'm wrong in this artistic expression? That attitude is really hard to get to, I think. And almost I think I'm right about this. Jimmy, please talk about it. It's a requirement. You can't
it's
be
a mean mama. It takes a mean ass mama. And my mama she's a bad bitch. Like she's awesome. But I think it takes a mean mama. Personally,
but Jimmy, like how many times have you been like, I think I'm right, and then your producer be like this, and then you just have to swallow it and say, yes, okay, you're probably right.
Well, I mean, that goes back to what y'all were talking about earlier with self-evaluation and reevaluation all the time. You got to keep yourself in check, and and it's part of that growth. Just because it's your idea doesn't mean it's the best one. It doesn't mean it's the worst one either. Maybe it is the right idea, and maybe it just takes you defending it to get that point across. But when you're in a room, like say take the studio like you're talking about there, for example, you're in a room with a bunch of other people. You have to be willing to accept other inputs. Because you're all trying to just get the best thing out of this song, and it's all about the song. That's all that matters. It's not how you play it. And if I'm a bass player, nobody gives a shit if I play some like really cool bass fill or something. Well,
we do.
Well, except for us nerds, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like a nerd will care, but it's like if it gets in the way of the song or it clobbers the vocal or it jumps over it. You're not serving the purpose that you're supposed to be serving. And sometimes it takes somebody there to remind you of that. Even if you're a great player or whatever, it takes somebody to be like, hey, that's great. Maybe dial it back a little bit. And that's the art of those really great producers is they know how to say a harsh thing nicely.
But then also on your side, and Adam, go with me. God damn, is that really what you're going to play? So Adam, go after me, Adam. Like what you were just saying, not to be married, and they're not your children, and that takes some maturity, and that takes some wisdom. That takes some wisdom as well. Adam, what were you going to say?
No, I was just commenting on how producers have that knack for telling harsh news nicely. I'd be like, Jesus.
Publishers.
Oh, dude, that's Adam. Oh my God, you just brought up that one time me and Sasha came down there and had a Music Row meeting.
Oh my God!
And the guy was telling us about how he could make us better, and I was interested, and then he was like, and then I'm going to cast each song like a movie, and then I looked at the other players like. He just said he was going to fire us very, very nicely. Mm-hmm. That was the nicest way I've ever been fired, ever. So, wrapping up and starting from here, how important is it to be in a music center? In today's day and age, in the internet age, where you can make recordings over thousands of miles if you want to, because as Adam talked about last week with the recordings that he did with Evanescence and the editing and stuff he did with them, he was editing footage from someone. Was she in Germany?
Yeah, the rhythm guitarist lives in Germany and the bass player is in Sacramento.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, so there's only two down there? It's 3. Will and Amy?
Will, Amy, and Troy. Troy lives in Atlanta.
Okay, so under those kind of conditions, how important? And Hannah, I know your answer. I think how important, we're going to go around the room here. Is it to be in a center? And let's be honest, those 3 centers are L.A. and New York and Nashville. I mean, am I leaving someone out?
Well, I feel like. I feel like it is important to be in a center if you want to get out and play live, to be seen and make those connections. Networking has not really been able to take place much this year. I would say, like, in the age of a global pandemic, it's not quite as much of a thing because you can do TikTok. You can do, so yeah, throw it back to you there. You can do TikTok. You can promote yourself on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, and distribute your own stuff out to streaming and get out that way, because everybody just needs to watch or listen to something right now. So it's kind of a weird limbo right now. Usually I would say, yeah, maybe at least a little bit closer to a center. Or at least in a heavily gigged town by out-of-town bands, because then you can meet up with those guys.
Like a Charleston, South Carolina.
Columbus, Ohio, all those.
Some place with a university that gets that sort of flow coming through, where there's youth and commerce and stuff moving and shaking happening. Yeah.
And it's not just about meeting the bands. Like you talk to some of the road crew. All those guys know everybody. Talk to the fucking merch guy. I love merch guys.
Merch guys are the best. Yeah. John, tell me, do you think to do what we're doing, and you also run a studio, and of course you have a plethora of possible clients in the town that you're in, and I know that we all three all lived in the same place, and you all went down there and left me behind. How important do you think it is to be in a center?
I think it's incredibly important, especially here is I think the biggest difference between, and I can't speak to Hannah because I didn't grow up around her, or didn't come up around her. The biggest difference between and Steve, Jimmy, and Adam is that you guys grew up in country music or in popular music, in playing in, you talking about playing with your Uncle Mike's band since you were 14 or 15 years old. I've seen the pictures.
I was so small. I had such a nice waist.
And so for me, you did, just a girlish figure. And so for me, the immersion is so important to understand all of these things. Like, I came down here, I had a music degree in jazz. I had a really expensive 5-string bass and a nice big SWR, fucking expensive sounding amplifier rig. I was set to go. I was going to be a pro hired gun sideman. And I realized that I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground when it came to the actual music industry and how things work and American music and how it all meshes together. And so to me, if you are not steeped in that history to begin with, you have got to go somewhere where that history was and still is and is happening and becoming, and you need to be able to watch it and to pay attention and see what you don't fucking know.
And what you just said, we're not just going to be always going to be Nashville centric, but if you're going to be in the country and the pop and the Americana, you got to go to Nashville. If you're going to be a hip hop guy, if you're going to be a girl or you're going to be pop, you're going to have to go to LA. If you're going to be a New York or a jazzer, you're going to have to go to New York. So that's what we want to make sure that we make that clear. Jimmy and then Hannah, you're going to bring us up here at the end. Jimmy, tell me, should we go? Oh, wait, John, go ahead.
But still, jazzer, pop, country, Americana, all of those still exist. Now, I've met some of the finest jazz players I know here in Nashville, which once again, side note, proves my pet theory that all the best players in Nashville are secretly jazz musicians. They just don't want to play jazz.
Yes.
Some of the best metalers I know are here in Nashville.
Yeah, so
preach it. Yeah.
You're right about the LA pop, Nashville country, Americana, New York jazz, but all of that does exist. The important thing being go to the music centers. That's my 2 cents. I'll bug out now.
Jimmy?
Piggybacking on what both of them said, I think it depends on what you want to do. If you're working on, like, say, maybe, or like Adam's in media production, whatever, where traveling isn't quite as big a deal. Still a thing, you still got to be places, but maybe it's not as much a thing. Or if you want to be on a business end, well, if you want to be in a business end, you really need to be in the center, really. In the internet age and all that. And I remember kind of hearing the same thing whenever I moved here. Oh, well, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do that, and blah, 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 blah. It's still, I think, fundamentally the same as it was 40, 50 years ago. It's personal relationships, and it's the things. The internet still can't replace going on the road with somebody and battling out the miles and sitting there having drinks together and carrying each other into hotel rooms and sweating and bleeding and all these things. Like you can't replicate that. That's what, lifelong friendships are built on. I mean, we look at high school with these kind of things like, oh, remember this and this and this. Yeah, them's were good times. It's like, that's what it is. The good times are still there. It's the personal relationships that we build with each other. And I don't think internet or anything could ever replace it. It's made the world smaller for sure. And it's made the business smaller. Nothing has ever been more accessible, good and bad. Like, everybody can get their music out there if they really want to now, whereas you couldn't do that before. So is it as necessary? No. If you really, but if you really, really, really want to get down into the nitty gritty and you want to like be a player or you want to be an artist or something, you at least have to come here once in a while.
Yeah.
To do something, because it's still where everything is and you got to go where the is.
And before I go to Hannah to close us up, I actually have carried Jimmy into a hotel room.
Oh, yes.
That's amazing.
For sure. I definitely have. I absolutely have. And I've also slept underneath the grand piano in John's house. So Hannah, close us up, Mama. I want you to close us up with the question that I will pose again. And then please give us all of your plugs. Because she's phenomenal. You're going to see her more. One day we will be like, oh, yeah, she was on our podcast.
I'm overrated, but thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Dude, you can tell how Southern everyone is because the humbleness is a sickness. None of us can take a compliment. It's wonderful. This is why the South is better than everywhere else. So, Hannah, you are in Nashville and you are an artist and you are in a major label. You're on Sony. Is that right?
Sony RCA, yes, sir.
So tell us how important it is for you to be where it's going on. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I don't know where you were in Georgia, but I'm pretty sure you probably wouldn't have been on Sony if you would have been trying to do what you're doing in Georgia.
This is so true. I mean, like Zach Brown would be your exception, bands like that, but he commuted. Not to ramble, because you guys really said everything. I would add, however, that if you wanted to be a songwriter in any genre, Nashville is the place to come to learn the true craft of songwriting. And Chris Christopherson had the success that he had outside of country music, because he was such a badass songwriter. And I think the Eagles had the career that they had because their songs were so much better written than their peers around them, and they took their schooling from Hank Williams and Ray Price and a lot of those records, and that's why their songs, in my opinion, obviously were as good as they were. They had country songwriters, and
that's why you came to Nashville.
You dang right. I love country music. Hot dang, Alan Jackson, my lord, he was I'm the self-proclaimed youngest member of the Alan Jackson fan club. Back in the 90s. So, I just thought he was a lot cooler than other people that were out.
Here in the real world still gets me every single time.
Are you kidding me? They wrote that song when they had a hangover. He and Mark Irwin. That was like a morning after a CMA Awards show in like 1988 or 89.
Oh, I know those songs.
That's how you come out swinging.
That's how, dude. I'll take tall trees every day. So, Hannah, we would like to thank you so much for coming on here. We're going to have you back because you're way too much fun. I think that we did something today. I think that maybe hopefully, if you're out there,
we gave away millions of dollars and blood, sweat, and tears worth of information. My God, I wish I'd have paid good money to listen to this if I had known better.
So, John, Adam, Jimmy, do you have anything else to add?
I do.
John, go ahead, brother.
I will say one thing to you. If you think you want to be a rock star, and I can only speak to my own personal experience here and how it went down for me, make sure, let me back that up. Some of you may be able to wear more than one hat. Some of you may, especially in the internet age when a laptop computer and Logic or Pro Tools is all you need to have a full recording studio at your fingertips. Maybe you're a multi-instrumentalist. Maybe you can write and sing and play and fucking skate on ice skates with a reindeer on your head. I don't know. Merry Christmas. Make sure you know what you are.
Yes.
Because I came to, I again, speaking from my own personal experience, I am a multi-instrumentalist. I can play the tits off of pretty much anything that I get my hands on.
Are you married? Go ahead.
I do not have a good enough concept of a bass player named Roy Vogt. One of my first contacts I made down here, he said, make sure you tell Nashville what you are, or Nashville will assign you a role.
Shit.
That is my advice to anyone. In my bio, my entry, like studio owner, and he's transitioning to artist and all this stuff. Man, I'm just a fucking 39-year-old kid who doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up. And so make sure that you have your shit together. Make sure you know exactly what path. You don't have to have your whole plan lined out, but make sure you know what your thing is when you come down.
Here.
So Hannah, John, that's fucking beautiful. And I've got one. Hannah, I want you to give you your plugs, and I'm going to end it with a John quote. Hannah, give us your plugs, baby.
Thank you, gentlemen. You can find me on TikTok. I was intoxicated when I created my account, so it's Hannah Damn Dasher. And but on Instagram and Facebook, Hannah Dasher. That's Hannah rhymes with Savannah. Dasher like the reindeer. Look for a little blue check mark. Anyhow, and Jimmy Likens will be a mutual friend.
Thank you,
gentlemen. I had the best time.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And I'm going to end this episode with this. And if you can ever get to this state of mind, if you can say this fucking sentence in earnest, then I say that you probably should try to make music your career. And this harkens back to those awesome punk rock type shows that me, Jimmy, and John played in the pizza basement up in Elkins. We played a fucking great show, and John Cavendish, one of my oldest friends, looked at me and he said, why would you want to do anything else? Thank you all. If you all want to help us out, please give us a like, comment, and share. If you're on the podcast, please throw it on your Facebook or Instagram. And we thank you all very much.
Later.